You know that feeling where everyone around you seems to be doing better than you? They have the newer apartment. They take the bigger vacations. They post photos from restaurants you have never heard of and would not know how to pronounce even if you tried. And meanwhile, you are sitting there with an investment account that barely moved this month, a savings balance that feels permanently stuck, and a quiet voice in the back of your head wondering if all this financial discipline is actually leading anywhere. That feeling is more common than you think, and the uncomfortable truth is that it might actually be the strongest evidence that you are doing something right. Because wealth does not announce itself with confetti and congratulations. It builds in silence. It hides behind boring habits and invisible decisions, and the people who are quietly getting rich almost never feel rich while it is happening. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 11 signs that your financial life is changing in ways you might not recognize yet. These are not about how much is sitting in your brokerage account or what your credit score says. These are behavioral and psychological shifts, the kind that only show up when something deeper has changed in the way you relate to money. My name is Ivan. Sign number 1, your biggest financial fear upgraded. Think back to a few years ago. What kept you up at night about money? For a lot of people, the fears were survival level. Can I make rent? What if my car breaks down? What happens if I lose my job next month? Those are real fears and they consume enormous mental energy, but at some point, without you noticing, those fears change. Now you find yourself worrying about things like whether you are maximizing your tax advantage account, whether your portfolio allocation is too aggressive or not aggressive enough, whether you should be diversifying into international index funds or sticking with domestic ones. This shift matters more than it seems. Your financial fears are a mirror of your financial position. When your baseline needs are met and your safety net is in place, your brain automatically starts scanning for the next level of problems. You graduate from survival questions to optimization questions. And that graduation is one of the clearest signals that your wealth is building, even if the balance does not feel impressive yet. Rich Richard and Poor Peter both earn the same salary, but Rich Richard's financial anxiety is about whether to increase his monthly investment from 700 to 800 euros. Poor Peter's anxiety is about whether his credit card payment will clear before the due date. Same income, completely different fear category. And that category tells you everything about where each of them is heading. A 2025 Bank of America study of nearly 89,000 retirement plan participants found that 66% of workers reported being financially stressed. But the study also revealed that the nature of that stress varies dramatically based on financial behavior. People with consistent savings habits worried about optimization. People without them worried about survival. Your fears are a financial X-ray. If the worries keeping you up have upgraded from "can I survive" to "am I optimizing," you are further along than you think. And there's a layer beneath this that makes it even more telling. When your fears upgrade, you do not just worry about different things, you worry differently. Survival level fears are sharp, constant, and physical. They tighten your chest and follow you into every conversation about money. Optimization level fears are quieter. They live in the background. They come up when you are reading an article about investment strategy or reviewing your annual returns. They are the kind of worries you can put down and pick back up. If your financial anxieties feel more like intellectual puzzles than existential threats, your foundation is stronger than your feelings are letting you believe. Sign number 2, you have become the boring one and you are fine with it. Your friends are planning a weekend getaway to a resort and you are thinking about whether 400 euros on 2 nights is the best use of that money right now. Your coworkers just upgraded their phones and you are still carrying the same one from 3 years ago. Someone at dinner orders the most expensive bottle on the menu and you quietly order a glass of the house wine because you actually like it and see no reason to spend 70 euros proving otherwise. A year ago, this would have bothered you. You would have felt left out or cheap or like you were missing something. But now, you feel oddly calm about it, maybe even a little proud, though you would never say that out loud. This is a wealth signal that nobody talks about because it does not look like progress. It looks like you are falling behind socially. But what actually happened is that your identity decoupled from your spending. You stopped needing purchases to prove anything to anyone, including yourself. And that decoupling is one of the hardest psychological shifts in personal finance. Plenty of people can learn to budget. Far fewer can learn to be comfortable being the least flashy person in the room. Rich Richard has been the boring one for years. Same jacket, same car, same apartment. His coworkers assume he is either struggling or just has no taste. Meanwhile, Poor Peter always has the latest gear, the freshest reservations, the most visible markers of success. But in 20 years, Rich Richard will have the freedom to stop working entirely. And poor Peter will still be chasing the next visible upgrade to fill a hole that spending has never once been able to fill. Sign number 3. You have started noticing how much other people spend. This is not about judging anyone, it is about awareness. When you step outside the current of unconscious spending, you start seeing the current itself. You notice that your neighbor trades in a perfectly functional car every 3 years. You notice that your colleague buys lunch every single day at 12 to 15 euros a pop, which adds up to over 3,000 euros a year. You notice the subscription charges that everyone complains about, but nobody cancels. Research shows the average person spends around 219 euros per month on subscriptions, but estimates they spend only about 86. That is a 2.5 times perception gap. You used to be part of that gap. Now you see it from the outside. This shift happens because building wealth forces you to become conscious about money flows. And once you develop that consciousness for your own finances, you cannot turn it off when you look at other people's behavior. It is like learning to read body language. Once you see it everywhere. And the strange part is, this awareness does not make you smug, it makes you quiet. Because you realize that the gap between where you are and where they are is not about intelligence or willpower. It is about whether the invisible machinery of financial awareness switched on or stayed dormant. You got lucky that yours switched on, and you know it could just as easily not have. Rich Richard started noticing these patterns about 5 years into his wealth building journey. He saw his colleague lease a new car every 36 months and mentally calculated the total cost of that cycle over a career. Not to judge, just because the math popped into his head automatically. He noticed that his friend group spent more on food delivery apps in a single month than he spent on groceries for the same period. He saw the subscription charges piling up on other people's accounts and remembered when his own looked exactly the same. Poor Peter does not see any of this. He is still inside the current. And when you are inside the current, the water just feels normal. You cannot see it moving because you are moving with it. Stepping out of unconscious spending is like climbing onto the riverbank for the first time and watching the flow from dry ground. The perspective shift is permanent. Sign number 4. Your credit card statement tells a different story. Pull up your credit card statement from 2 years ago and compare it to this month. The total might be similar, but look at the categories. 2 years ago, you probably had more impulse retail, more dining out, more one-click purchases from online shopping at 2 in the morning when you could not sleep. The charges were scattered and reactive. Now look at this month. The categories shifted. More groceries, fewer restaurants, more automated investment transfers, fewer random charges, more planned purchases, fewer surprises. The spending DNA changed without you deliberately trying to change it. This is what financial maturation looks like in the wild. Your spending patterns reorganize themselves as your financial identity evolves. The shift does not happen because you white-knuckled your way through a strict budget. It happens because your priorities rewired themselves gradually over months and years. Poor Peter's credit card statement looks the same year after year. Restaurants, subscription upgrades, impulse electronics, fast fashion, delivery services. The categories never change because the underlying relationship with money never changed. Rich Richard's statement evolved. It got simpler. Fewer line items, fewer merchants, fewer charges below 20 euros that he cannot even remember making. His money flows became intentional without becoming restrictive. If your statement looks different than it did 2 years ago and you did not follow a rigid plan to make it that way, something shifted inside you. That shift is worth more than a 1,000 euro raise. Sign number 5, you have become patient with money but impatient with wasted time. This is a strange reversal and it creeps up on you. Years ago, you were impatient with money. You wanted the returns now, the raise now, the financial freedom now. Waiting 10 or 20 years for compounding to work felt like an eternity. But something flipped. Now, you are completely fine with the idea that your portfolio needs another decade or 2 to reach its full potential. You understand the math, you trust the process, the urgency around money faded. At the same time, your patience for wasted time collapsed. A 2-hour meeting that should have been an email makes you furious. A weekend spent on obligations you did not choose feels like a theft. Standing in line, sitting in traffic, watching someone take 15 minutes to make a decision that should take 30 seconds. All of it grates on you in a way it never used to. This reversal happens because building wealth quietly teaches you what is actually scarce. Money, you have learned, is renewable. You can always earn more, save more, invest more. Time is the resource you cannot manufacture, and once your financial position is stable enough that money stops being the bottleneck, time rushes in to take its place as the thing you guard most fiercely. And this shows up in surprising ways. You stop saying yes to overtime you do not need. You start declining invitations that feel like obligations rather than opportunities. You become protective of your weekends in a way you never were before because you finally have the financial margin to choose how you spend your hours instead of selling every one of them to the highest bidder. You might even catch yourself doing mental math in the opposite direction, not how much can I earn in this hour, but what is this hour worth to me if I spend it on something I care about? This reversal is itself a wealth signal. People who are still financially stressed are impatient with money and careless with time. People who are building real wealth become the opposite: patient with money, ruthless with time. Sign number 6. You stopped caring about your salary and started caring about your net worth. There was a time when your salary was the number that defined you. When someone asked how you were doing financially, you thought in terms of what you earned per year. A raise felt like progress. A higher offer from another company felt like validation, but at some point, that shifted. Your salary started feeling like just one input into a larger equation. You became more interested in what you kept than what you earned. You started tracking your net worth, the total value of everything you own minus everything you owe, and realized that was the number that actually mattered. Charles Schwab's 2025 Modern Wealth Survey found that Americans believe it takes about 2.3 million in net worth to be considered wealthy, not 2.3 million in income, net worth. And the Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires found that only 31% of millionaires averaged a household income of 100,000 or more during their careers. The majority built their wealth on modest salaries through consistent investing over decades. This means the salary race is largely a distraction. Two people earning the same income can have wildly different net worths depending on what they do with the gap between earning and spending. Rich Richard understood this early. He stopped chasing raises as a primary strategy and started optimizing his savings rate instead. Poor Peter kept chasing the bigger paycheck, assuming that more income would eventually solve everything. But income without a saving strategy is just a bigger funnel pouring into the same leaky bucket. If you have made this mental switch from income identity to net worth identity, you are thinking like someone who builds lasting wealth, even if the net worth number itself is still small. The difference between these two mindsets compounds over time in ways that are almost comically unfair. The person focused on salary celebrates a 10% raise and immediately upgrades their lifestyle by 10%. Their net worth stays flat despite earning more. The person focused on net worth treats that same raise as an opportunity to widen the gap between what they earn and what they spend, funneling the difference into investments that grow quietly in the background. After a decade of this, two people with identical career arcs can end up in completely different financial realities, all because one measured progress in paychecks and the other measured it in net worth. And the beautiful part of this shift is that once it happens, it never reverses. Once you start seeing net worth as the real scoreboard, going back to salary-based thinking feels like measuring a road trip by how fast the engine is running instead of how far you have traveled. I want to pause here for anyone watching who is trying to figure out exactly where they stand on this spectrum. I built a free tool that can help. There is a quiz accessible through the first link in the description below. It takes a few minutes, asks about your specific financial situation, and maps out a plan based on your actual numbers and timeline. If you want clarity on where you are and what to focus on next, give it a try. Sign number 7, you can name your financial numbers without looking them up. Ask yourself right now, what is your net worth? What is your monthly savings rate? How many months of expenses could you cover if your income stopped tomorrow? What percentage of your income goes to housing? If you can answer those questions within a reasonable margin without opening an app, something important happened. Financial awareness became ambient. It is not that you obsess over the numbers, it is that you absorb them the way you absorbed your phone number or your home address. They just live in your head because they matter to you. This is different from the anxious checking that happens early in the wealth building journey, where you refresh your investment app 3 times a day hoping the number went up. That behavior comes from insecurity. The calm awareness that comes later is the opposite. You know your numbers because you manage them. You do not need to check because nothing is on fire. Rich Richard knows his savings rate is 22%. He knows his net worth within a few thousand euros. He knows his emergency runway is about 8 months. He did not memorize these numbers. They seeped in over years of paying attention. Poor Peter could not tell you his net worth if his life depended on it. He knows his salary. He knows his rent. Beyond that, the financial picture is a blur. Sign number 8. Your comfort zone expanded in places that have nothing to do with money. When money stress goes down, something unexpected happens. You become more creative at work. You take on projects that interest you instead of just the ones that feel safe. You speak up in meetings because you are not terrified of losing your job over a disagreement. You try new hobbies. You reach out to old friends. You take small social risks that would have felt impossible when your financial life was a source of constant anxiety. Research published in the Journal of Business and Psychology in 2025 found that financial strain directly increases stress before bed behaviors, which erode sleep quality and spill into daytime functioning. The study tracked participants over 9 months and found that those experiencing financial worry showed significantly more insomnia symptoms, sleep dissatisfaction, and daytime impairment. When you flip that finding around, it suggests that reducing financial strain frees up cognitive and emotional bandwidth that people then redirect into other areas of growth. If you have noticed yourself becoming braver, more social, more willing to try things, and you cannot quite explain why, look at your finances. The stability you built there is quietly underwriting courage in every other part of your life. That courage is compound interest for the soul, and it is a sign that your financial foundation is stronger than you realize. Rich Richard started painting last year. Something he always wanted to try but never did because it felt frivolous when money was tight. He also applied for a role at work that was a stretch, knowing that even if it did not work out, his financial runway would keep him safe. He started having harder conversations with people he cared about, the kind of conversations he used to avoid because conflict felt too risky when everything else already felt unstable. None of these changes had anything to do with his brokerage account, but all of them were funded by it. Poor Peter is still stuck in survival mode, even though his salary is identical to Rich Richard's. He stays in the safe lane at work. He avoids difficult conversations. He does not try new things because the mental bandwidth is consumed by financial anxiety that never fully quiets down. The invisible cost of financial stress is not just the stress itself. It is everything you never try because the stress stole your capacity to take chances. Sign number 9. You started thinking in after-tax terms. A few years ago, if someone offered you a €10,000 raise, you would have celebrated the full 10,000. Now your first thought is closer to, so that is about 6,500 after taxes. You have started automatically discounting for taxes in a way that changes how you evaluate every financial decision. This seems like a small thing. It is not. Thinking in after-tax terms means you have internalized a layer of financial sophistication that separates casual earners from serious wealth builders. You do not just see the headline number anymore, you see the real number, and that distinction changes everything, from how you negotiate your salary to how you evaluate investment returns to whether a side project is actually worth the time. Rich Richard evaluates every financial opportunity in after-tax terms. When his company offered a bonus of €5,000, he immediately thought about what that meant inside his tax bracket and how much would actually land in his investment account. Poor Peter celebrated the 5,000, spent 4,000 of it before the taxes came due, then scrambled to cover the tax bill in April. This shift is not something anyone teaches you. It develops naturally as your financial awareness deepens, and once it switches on, you never go back to thinking in gross terms again. You see through the surface number to the real one underneath. That vision is a wealth-building superpower. Sign number 10, people stopped offering to help you financially. Think about your parents, your older relatives, your more established friends. There was probably a time when they would quietly offer to lend you money, cover a bill, or help with a deposit. Not because you asked, but because something about the way you carried yourself signaled that you might need it. At some point, those offers stopped, not because they care less about you, but because something in your posture changed. The way you talk about money shifted. The way you handle unexpected costs shifted. The low-grade financial anxiety that used to radiate off you faded, and the people closest to you picked up on it without either of you ever having a conversation about it. This is one of the most invisible wealth signals that exists. Nobody announces it, nobody celebrates it. But when the people who love you stop worrying about your finances, it means your financial stability became visible to the outside world even before it became visible to you. Rich Richard's parents stopped offering to help years ago. They noticed he paid for dinner without flinching. They noticed he stopped mentioning money stress. They noticed the calm. Poor Peter's family still quietly sets aside a little extra just in case he calls. Not because he is failing, but because the signal he broadcasts through his spending habits, his financial anxiety, and the way he talks about upcoming bills still carries the frequency of someone who is one bad month away from needing a safety net. Sign number 11. Your relationship with financial mistakes changed. Everyone makes financial mistakes. A bad investment, holding cash too long, buying something overpriced because you did not do the research, trusting the wrong financial advice. The question is not whether you make mistakes, it is how those mistakes land. A few years ago, a financial mistake could wreck your week. A €500 error would spiral into guilt, self-criticism, and a sense that you were terrible with money. You would replay the decision in your head for days. Now, a €500 mistake is annoying. Maybe you shake your head and make a mental note, but it does not send you into an emotional tailspin. It does not make you question your entire financial identity. You absorb it, adjust, and move on. This shift reveals something critical about your financial position. Your margin of error expanded. When you have almost no financial cushion, every mistake feels catastrophic because it is. When you have built even a modest foundation, mistakes become learning experiences instead of emergencies. The emotional weight of errors drops in direct proportion to the strength of your financial base. Rich Richard lost about €2,000 on a stock pick that went sideways last year. He shrugged, sold the position, and redirected the remaining capital. The loss represented less than 1% of his portfolio. It barely registered. Poor Peter lost the same $2,000 on a similar bet. But for him, that was a month of savings. The loss triggered a 3-week spiral where he stopped investing entirely and considered pulling everything out of the market. Same dollar amount, same mistake, completely different emotional impact, and that emotional impact is the truest measure of where each of them actually stands. So here is the pattern across all 11 of these signs. Not a single one of them is about the size of your bank account. They are about how you think, how you feel, how you behave around money, and what kind of person you are becoming as your financial life quietly evolves. And that is the part nobody warns you about. Wealth does not just change your account balance, it changes you. It changes what scares you, what bores you, what excites you, and what you are willing to tolerate. It changes the way you spend a Tuesday evening and the way you react when something goes wrong. And all of these changes happen so gradually that you barely notice them from the inside. The irony is that the people who are quietly getting rich feel the least rich. They are the ones sitting in a modest apartment, driving an older car, wearing the same jacket they bought 4 years ago, wondering if they are doing enough. Meanwhile, the people who look the richest on the outside are often the ones with the least to show for it once you subtract the debt, the leases, and the monthly payments that keep the whole illusion running. If you recognize yourself in 5 or 6 of these signs, you are further ahead than you give yourself credit for. The behavioral shifts happen. The psychological foundation is in place. The numbers will follow because they always follow when the underlying habits and identity align. And if you only recognize yourself in 1 or 2, that is still movement. That is still the beginning of a shift that, given enough time and consistency, will bring the rest along with it. Because these signs do not show up all at once. They arrive one by one, spaced out over years, often so quietly that you miss them entirely. You wake up one morning and realize you stopped dreading tax season. You notice that the last time your car needed an unexpected repair, you handled it without a single moment of panic. You catch yourself turning down an invitation, not because you cannot afford it, but because you simply do not want to go. And none of these moments feel like milestones. They feel like Tuesday, but they are milestones. Wealth is not a destination you arrive at and suddenly feel wealthy. It is a slow transformation that changes you from the inside before it ever shows on the outside. And the fact that you watch this far, that you are the kind of person who thinks about this at all, is itself a sign that you are already on the right path. Rich Richard did not have a higher salary. He did not have better luck. He did not have access to information that poor Peter could not find. He simply noticed the shifts earlier. He paid attention to the behavioral changes instead of waiting for the account balance to validate him. And by the time the numbers caught up, he was already living like someone who understood that real wealth was never about the money in the first place. It was about the person he became while building it.